Good morning. Giving talks and teaching is a particular practice in and of itself. And each of us who are in that position of teaching classes or teaching meditation, it's itself an ongoing journey to learn how to lean into that and to do that with skill and grace and authenticity and honesty. And I have a couple of things that I want to share. First of all, I want to tell you a story. Ajahn Sumedho told this when we were living in the monastery. He was the first Western monk in the Thai Forest Monastery, Ajahn Chah's Thai Forest Monastery in northeast Thailand. And in Thailand, the custom is that as a monastic, when you give a talk, you sit on an elevated platform as a way of elevating the Dharma, not the person. And so Ajahn Chah invited Ajahn Sumedho to give a talk. And so not only was he giving a Dharma talk in front of the congregation of people who were used to hearing Ajahn Chah, but also he was speaking in a language that was not his first language. And as is the custom, you were sitting on a platform, and the tamat, as it's called, was maybe 6 feet tall. So it was high. It's not a small thing. So Ajahn Sumedho accepted the invitation, got on the tamat, and was giving a talk, and he poured himself into it. He just poured himself into it. He gave everything that he had. It was a good talk. And then Ajahn Chah asked him to give another talk. So he did the same. He just poured himself into it. He gave everything that he had to the talk. And then Ajahn Chah asked him to do it again, and again, and again, and again, and again, and again, and again. So by the end of, I don't know how many hours it was, many hours of nonstop giving a talk to the same group of people, every ounce of trying to be somebody good or do it right or make a good impression or have it all together had completely gotten used up in the repeated efforts and the fatigue of doing this again and again and again and again and again. So what resulted, or what was remaining, was this quality of clarity, of presence, of the willingness to show up, of the willingness to speak to the truth of the present moment. Now, one of the things that's really a strong gift of the MMTC program is the ways in which there is a lot of support to develop skills, to develop competencies, and to understand context, and to be able to learn how to use these in a way that optimizes the outreach for various diverse people. And I can say that in the monastery, we never were taught how to teach. I never received feedback on how to teach. So it's the opposite of, one curriculum is designed to maximize competencies, and the other had a very different approach. But the reason why I bring this forward is that even as an idea, just to imagine being in that position where you're having to give a talk again and again and again and again and again for hours with the same group of people, just the ways in which some of the trying, the efforting, the needing to be somebody in order to be giving a talk, how that can release. And what can come in its place is a strong confidence of your presence, of your practice, of your capacity to show up, that then fills out through the competencies that you have. So I offer this as an opportunity for you to consider. And the other thing that I want to share is that, one of the blessings of living in a community, in a monastery, is that there were many different people from many different cultures that would come, and sometimes we would have a chance to hear some of the things that they would do. And for the Sri Lankan community, one of the things that I learned about was this idea of this good karma book. So the idea is that when a child is born, when an infant is born, then the family makes a good karma book, and everything that that child is involved with. So when the family goes and gives alms or is involved with helping people who are in trouble or in need, and it's a family event and the child participates, they write it, they make an entry and note what happened, who was present, that the child was there. And for example, in coming to the monastery, the monastery was a place where there was a lot of goodness that that everybody was encouraged to cultivate. And so tiny little babies, newborn, brand new babies would come, and their mama or their papa would hold them and hold their little tiny little hand in their hand, and then make a gesture of offering rice into the bowl. Just this little gesture. So from an infant, they were imprinted with this principle of generosity, of giving, of helping others, of support. And then as the child grew older and had more volition, choice in what they did, then those events could be recorded. And then certainly as the person turned into a young adult and an adult and then got older, the events of generosity were recorded. And then sometimes when somebody would get sick, people would bring out the Good Karma book and read these specific entries as a way of uplifting the mind. And I am told that on a person's deathbed, as they are in transition, they are read the cumulative acts of goodness from their entire life. So here we are in this position of teachers. And one of the things that's really helpful to consider is our own good qualities. So our good qualities, generosity may be one of them, but there are going to be other good qualities that we have. So rather than have a Good Karma book, we need a different book. And a book where we can name and list and become familiar with the various good qualities that we have. And this way, that sometimes things happen when we're teaching and we get discouraged, or we feel confused, or we feel bewildered, or we feel overwhelmed. All of the normal things that happen when we're living, only this time it's happening in the context of teaching. And we can pull out our book. I'm not sure what the right name for it is. I think maybe each of us need to come up with a name, or we can have a naming contest of what it's called. And read through our strengths. What are the qualities that we know that we have that can help give some ballast and some perspective when things are challenging. So I offer these as reflections and to use them as and if they are useful, and if not, just to leave them with me.